Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast with your host, Jacob Liberta. As you can see, my co-host, Bailey Palicki, is not here with us tonight. He will not be available because he's currently at the Mikko Koivu jersey retirement game against the Predators. So I hope he's enjoying that in wake of this news, even despite all this happening. It's a lot to react to because this is the biggest Vikings news that really we've been waiting for all offseason. So we're certainly going to dive into that more, and we'll get all of his thoughts this week. But for now, you'll get my instant reaction here as we unpack everything that has transpired and what's going to happen in the immediate future. So before we jump into that, though, I just want to say you probably all noticed off the top of this that we have rebranded recently and we have a whole new look. And that's a credit to our good friend of the show, Nathan Bachman. He helped us get this podcast off the ground when we first started around this time last year. And he's been a huge help. And again, I really love this new image that we got. So I'm pretty excited with where we're going. And again, you can continue to follow along with us if you hit that subscribe button below, and certainly give this video a like, even if you're not a big Kirk guy, or maybe you are, I don't know. But I certainly want to hear your thoughts too in the comments if you think this was the right move for the Vikings or not. I certainly don't think it was, but if you do, I kind of want to hear a good explanation. Maybe you can help me rationalize this whole thing because I'm unhappy right now. So with that said, I think I'm just going to jump right into it. The Vikings have Sunday night extended Kirk Cousins 1 year, $35 million, which means he will be a Minnesota Vikings for the next 2 seasons, because this is taking us all the way through the end of the 2023 season, and we now have a no trade clause worked in there. So this is pretty ironclad. We're not going to be moving off of him. So Kirk Cousins is QB1 for the foreseeable future, whether you like it or not. And I know the no trade clause was not a thing until this extension was reached, because the first 3 years of his deal, like in the original contract, it was, but then it was taken off the table with the recent extension that Rick signed him to 2 years ago, but now it's back on. So basically, take it or leave it. Kirk's the guy. We have to try and win them. So with that said, I know I'm certainly not a fan of this move. I do not think it was the right direction to go in, and this kind of gives me cause for concern with this new leadership that we have, because I felt like they would have the really I don't know, I guess come to terms with the fact that Kirk was a main reason, or at least certainly a highly contributing reason, that the last two, the GM head coach combo that was in before Kwesi and KOC, got fired because of Kirk. And really this move the Vikings made to try and win, it just didn't pan out, because with Kirk here over the last 4 years, we've been a very average team at best. And it's been a lot of mediocre play, and we want more than that. We want a Super Bowl, not just one playoff appearance in 4 seasons. So realistically, it kind of baffles me a little bit. I guess I always knew this was a possibility. Like, the extension felt like it was certainly on the table. I know, especially as of late last week, it sounded like all the reports were indicating that. And certainly trade was out there, because there's a lot of QB needy teams here this offseason. And there's always maybe the slight chance that we just play out the deal and let him walk in free agency next year. But here we are. We've finally come to the decision, or they've finally come to the decision, that he's the guy, and this is the direction we're going in for the near future, these next 2 seasons. So now it's time, whether we like it or not. I keep saying that, but I obviously don't like it, but some people do. I know there's a lot of Crusaders out there, but I think we all got to come together now and think about how best to surround Kirk to really help us win right now. And I think that starts with prioritizing the offense, just because if we're going to have Kirk here making all this money, like, we got to make him as good as possible. And that starts with surrounding him with everything he could possibly need. I know the skill position groups all feel pretty set, albeit I think there's some interesting decisions to be made, because obviously with Kirk's cap number and us being way over the cap, and we have to get cap compliant within a matter of days here in the middle of this week, we have to make some tough decisions on some veterans that have been around for a while. So maybe these guys aren't even in the fold, and this isn't the Kwesi's plans, but for now, this is what we're working off of, because it's what we know, and these are the guys currently on the roster. So with that said, you got Dalvin in the backfield, along with solid backup in Alexander Madison, and a nice weapon in Kene Nwangwu as well. And then out wide, you got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and then you got an emerging KJ Osborne as your third receiver. And then as far as the tight end room goes, it looks a little uncertain right now. We got Irv Smith, who I think was on the cusp of potentially having a breakout season last year, but then he had that unfortunate injury in the preseason, so he had to miss all of last season. But I think he could certainly be a prime candidate for having a big year. And I'm glad he's going to be back. I really hope we can bring back Tyler Conklin. His contract expired, and I don't know if we'll be able to bring him back or not. I don't know what kind of money he's looking for, but there's certainly he's going to be one of the best tight ends on the market just because all the tight ends that were going to become free agents all seem to have gotten franchise tags. So that's where we are. I think Conklin really proved last season he can be a very adequate tight end one. So I could definitely see another team being able to pony up and make him their first tight end, and then he's gone, which would be unfortunate. But as long as we got Herb, I think we'll be all right. Obviously, it's nice to have the more the merrier, but that's what we got. So skill group, yeah, skill position groups, there's no worries there. Offensive line, I think that's where it always comes back to with the Vikings, especially during the Kirk era. I think we have three positions pretty set in both our tackles. Brian O'Neill at the right tackle, obviously, he just got signed the big extension last year. And then you got Christian Darrisaw, who certainly showed some promise on that left side. The former first-round pick from last year, really, when he started to actually play and start, like I thought he looked very, very solid. So I'm pretty excited about him. And Ezra Cleveland, even at left guard, if that's our weak link, I could certainly live with that. I think he was plenty capable, and I think got better as the season went along. So hopefully that evolvement continues. But really, it's going to boil down to the center position, which I haven't felt good about in years because obviously Garrett Bradbury's been a bust. The former first-round pick has not been good, not played nearly the expectations that you'd really set for him as a former first-round pick. But Kevin O'Connell has made comments about how much he likes him, but again, that might be smoke. I don't know, but their Kirk comments end up being true, so who knows? And then at right guard, I don't want to see Oli Udoh again. That guy was a disaster right guard, and not really his fault because he's been a tackle his whole football career. And we came into training camp last year being like, yep, we'll just try and play right guard. That's what happened. So I think he was doomed to fail, but poor guy, he shouldn't be starting at right guard. So I think those are two massive holes you need to fill in this offensive line, and I don't think that's something you want to do in the first round of the draft. I think we have a lot of other needs, especially defensively. So we're going to have to look at free agency. Maybe you kick the tires on a guy like Ryan Jensen at center, former center of the Bucs, but he might end up going back to Tampa Bay now with Tom Brady obviously come back out of retirement. This Kirk news kind of slid under the radar on the national scene, but obviously all of us Minnesotans have been waiting for this, all of us Vikings fans. So again, circling back, Ryan Jensen, he kind of nice ad. And then if you're thinking right guard, well, I know Brandon Scherff has been floated out there. I know there's other guys that maybe have more familiarity with Kevin O'Connell, such as Austin Corbett out there in LA. I think that's certainly an option there. And he's a little bit younger, and Scherff got probably a few more good years ahead of him. And I think it would make a lot of sense just because he played in the O'Connell offense, literally. So I think that would be a very solid signing. But I think those are probably the two biggest holes you need to address in this offense to really bring the best out of Kirk. And I'm kind of excited. Maybe they think Wyatt Davis can play. Who knows? I think Davis certainly didn't really get a fair shake last year. I know he came into camp on a shape, and that's a big no-no. But at the same time, I think he certainly had a lot of potential coming out of college, and I think he fell into the doghouse, and Zim wasn't going to let him get out of it because he had this beef with Rick, and Rick's draft picks were just collateral damage. So maybe Davis can play. Who knows? But I think that's the biggest thing you got to start with, and making this offense as good as it possibly can, because I truly envision that as the only way we're going to win and win big. So I'm really hoping that's the really direction we go in free agency, which kind of begs the question, like with the cap situation that we have, and obviously you're not taking Kirk out of the picture and his big money, so you're going to have to move a lot of other guys to make space. And if we're trying to make Kirk as good as possible and kind of leave the offense as it is, hopefully, then you got to look to the defensive side of the ball. And who's gone? I mean, that might be Danielle Hunter could be traded. I certainly wouldn't want to see that, but financially you might have to, because you might be left with no choice here. Maybe it was Kirk or Danielle, and now we've kept Kirk. Maybe Danielle's out the door. Who knows? I know that's certainly been another rumor that's floated out there that teams have definitely checked in with the Vikings on trading for him. So maybe Danielle's in the cards to be dealt for draft compensation. Who knows? But that's a franchise defensive end that you've been moving on from and a big hole to fill. And then you think about going up another level to the linebackers. You think about Eric Kendricks. I mean, he's been an all-pro caliber linebacker, and now he's also got a pretty rich contract. And I don't know how much of a future they see with him in the 3-4. Who knows how they might think he'd fit, and maybe he could be a cap casualty. And then you go even farther back in the secondary, think of Harrison Smith, and that's a big one. He's one of the highest paid safeties in the league. I know really Kevin O'Connell pounding on the table for him in the opening press conference saying, "Oh, Harrison Smith's perfect for this defense. He's going to be just what we need." But was that just smoke? I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. But I think all these moves are going to happen in rapid succession. But I think some of these guys are going to go. There's certainly no way that they can keep all these guys in unless everybody's willing to take all these magical pay cuts, which I wouldn't expect them to. So realistically, some of these guys are going to be out the door. It's just a matter of who. And at this point, I got to think it's Daniil. I really hope not. But it's the biggest cap number behind Kirk. So realistically, that's a very real possibility. I think people have to really brace themselves for, and we're gonna have to, if that's the move that is going to be made, I think we have to look to replace him in the first round for a guy that could play right now, because I love our project defensive ends because I think they all have some high upside, but they all were taken mid-round. They're really developmental players, and who knows if they'd be ready to play a significant role this year. Like, I know DJ Wom's a good story, and I like him, and I think he could probably be a starting defensive end opposite somebody really elite because he had 8 sacks last year. But another thing you got to take into context is I think like 6 of those sacks came in the 2 games just against the Bears. So realistically, I think that's not great. You'd obviously like to see be a little bit more balanced than that. So I don't know. Maybe DJ Wong fit better in 3-4 too. But who knows? But and then you got Patrick Jones sitting there. You got Janarius Robinson was on IR last year, 4th round pick out of Florida State. But I think you got to take a bona fide guy that would be able to solidify that spot with Daniil being out. I mean, he leaves big shoes to fill. So I think that would definitely be on the table for that first round draft pick we have coming up in April. And who knows, maybe we pick up another first by trading Daniil Hunter. I don't know what the offers really are like out there right now. It's hard to say because he's only played 6 games the last 2 years. But at the same time, he's the fastest player ever to get to 50 sacks in the league. So that's certainly a credit to him in being really an elite player. So it's really, I'm really curious to know what the offers are out there for him, if they really are exploring the trade market. And it really goes for any of these defensive guys. If we're really willing to move on from really mainstays, really solid contributors, like who are you going to fill them with to really keep this defense at least adequate enough to not be a liability to the offense and again help us win big? Because clearly if we're keeping Kirk around, that must be the plan, is to win right now. And you can't do that if your defense is a total liability. So I'm curious what the answers are there. I'm sure they got a plan. I hope they know what they're doing, because they're going to have to nail pretty much everything else that they're doing from free agency to the draft to make this work. Because Kirk, as we all know, I mean, whether you're a Kirk truther or not, you got to know that the circumstances have to be perfect around him, because when everything's perfect, he's great. But then when things start to fall apart, even in the slightest, I mean, he's done for. So realistically, I think we got to buckle up here for these next few days, this coming week, and really just see what happens. It's just going to be like bam, 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 all these moves right and left, and hopefully we'll be signing some really quality guys in free agency at reasonable price tags. That's really all we're going to be able to afford, and this really scares me. It feels like we're running it back, but again, you can't really say that for sure yet, depending on which veterans they do or don't keep around. But it kind of seems like the play here, and that's a little concerning coming off a sub 500 season, albeit I know Zim was not a great coach at the end here. I know he really put us in a lot of bad spots last season, a lot of winnable games, but at the same time, I think it goes beyond Zim. I think people are foolish to think if that's really the only problem here, and otherwise you get KOC in your innovative offensive mind, everything's fine. I truly don't believe that's the case. So I hope they have some good answers here and fast. But for now, really, I'm going to leave it at that, just because I need more time to process this. Truthfully, to be honest with all of you guys, I'm devastated by Kirk still being here, still being a Viking. He's definitely, again, the problem is not him being a bad quarterback. Like, he's certainly an above average quarterback, and it's just that price tag. I can't do it, because when you get him out of here, it opens the door up to way more ability to fill roster holes that we desperately need, because we have no really core guys, especially on defense, that we can build around right now. And I think we just need guys that are a little bit younger. Maybe we could get some free agents that have a lot more years in front of them than some of the guys we have right now that have really been the foundation of this team for years. But it's certainly going to be a juicy free agency period to see how much we're able to do just with this contract constraint, and then what we do in the draft, what we really are going to value and what the strategy will be there, just because this is obviously brand new for this combo of guys between KC and KOC. So lots to be learned here, but I can get excited for it nonetheless because it's the NFL, it's my team. The Vikings, it's always going to be my number one, but at the same time, I feel like these guys are on thin ice with me. It's going to take a lot for them to prove themselves because I know they haven't even jumped in their first league year together, but this looks bad and I'm a little bit nervous, but at the same time, I'm still not completely out on them. I think they still need to be given a chance, but at the same time, this is not the way to start this new regime. But it is what it is, and now we just got to see what happens. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And I can't wait to dive into this with Bailey, and you guys will hear his rage because I know he is certainly more unhappy about this than even I am. And I know it's just one of those things. Kirk, he's just a polarizing guy. What can I say? But again, hit that subscribe button below, whether you like Kirk or not, whether you like this extension or not, and certainly hit that like button and comment what you think, what beefs you might have with my opinions or what beefs you might have with Kirk. Who knows? But until next time, thanks for watching, and we look forward to recording more Vikings content in the coming days.